Hello and welcome to Neutron Run. I'm Jack.
And I'm Stuart, and welcome to this deep dive of our new producer series NAMM profile pack for Iron Maiden's Powerslave. A seminal album by all counts, but also, poignantly, this year marks the 40th anniversary of its original release, September 3rd, 1984. So far has managed to sell over 9 million copies worldwide, arguably one of the most influential heavy metal albums of all time, and definitely something that we were really looking forward to getting to grips with. So we're going to talk just very briefly about producer series and what it is. There are loads of other deep dives that you can go and watch that have much longer explanations of this stuff if it's something you really want to know about. But for this one, we'd like to just get straight into the content. So producer series, as you may or may not know, is a pack that we create themed around specific albums where we recreate the iconic guitar sounds on those albums by reconstructing the original recording chain so that you get as close as possible to the sound on the actual record. In this case, we went back to whatever we could find out in terms of information, but had to do quite a lot of experimentation because there's actually not an awful lot of documented info about these particular sessions. So we had to try a load of different stuff until we found the things that match sonically, and we're able to get something really, really close that I think you're going to really enjoy. And certainly we had a great time making it. So quickly go over the signal chains that we're reproducing. And you can see on the screen here, just going to hide the camera for a minute. So top row here is the kind of basic signal chain. So we're ignoring all the studio stuff for now, although I'll talk about that in a minute. So you've got a kind of a basic tone that's constructed from the amplifier being used, the type of speaker being used, and as you can see here, a couple of pedals. Two guitar players in Iron Maiden. So we've got two completely separate signal chains to reproduce. There are some similarities, as you can see, but also there are some pretty major differences. So we needed to make sure that you would be able to recreate the sound of this album and that you had all the tools that you would need, which is kind of the whole purpose of doing these packs wherever we can. We want to give you all the building blocks that let you reconstruct more or less the whole thing within the constraints of what's possible in a reasonable frame of time, because these do take a very long time to make and they're very meticulous, which is how they end up sounding so close. So top row here, Dave Murray, guitar player number one in Iron Maiden. His sound around this time was created by a combination of a couple of pedals and an old 4-input Marshall, plexi-style Marshall. He would boost the mid frequencies on the equalizer going into his MXR Distortion Plus in order to give it a slightly more mid-rich character. This helped to keep it really tight, especially when playing sort of chuggy notes, which Iron Maiden do a lot. Stopped it from getting too flabby down there and losing definition, so you could hear, every note of what's being played. The Marshall providing the standard sort of Marshall sound, but with this extra layer of drive and extra output volume between the guitar and the amp, it really pushes it into a lot more gain than you would have gotten out of the Marshall on its own. And in fact, you could say this sound is kind of like the prototype for the more modern amplifiers that came afterwards. It was a very influential sound, and not that it then, was replicated exactly by any specific amplifier, but certainly Marshall themselves were taking notes from what people were doing with their amplifiers, the type of pedals they were plugging into them, and the kind of sounds they were getting for future versions of the design, right up to the point where by the sort of end of the 80s, the JCM 900 came along, and it had like a solid state overdrive distortion circuit built into the amp, and a lot of the things that you're seeing here were they were trying to build them into the amp as the sound of it right from the beginning. Anyway, so speaker here is the G1265. This and newer versions of this are still what Dave Murray uses to this day. I think he had a brief period where they sort of experimented with gear, but it seems like they kind of almost come back to this kind of setup now. and he's back on the 65s. Very obvious when you listen to the sound of his guitar that he's using these speakers. And actually, at first, we thought that both of them were using the same one, but as we went through the process, we discovered that wasn't true. So for Adrian Smith, Tube Screamer is his booster of choice. That's what he's using to get the extra gain. And this became a super iconic sound. Like a Tube Screamer boosting a Marshall is, well, I couldn't even name for you the number of records that had that sound on, but it became almost the de facto heavy rock and heavy metal sound for many years. And I'm not saying that necessarily Adrian Smith was either the inventor or the reason why, but it's a super effective combination. It really, for playing metal, you get loads of gain, you get a really tight sound. This kind of boosted mid thing into the MXR that Dave's doing, the Tube Screamer kind of does that anyway. That's what the Tube Screamer does. It really boosts the mid range. So it's kind of just a simpler way of achieving the same kind of result with a slightly different character. This is an overdrive, whereas the MXR is a distortion. So the Dave's sound is a bit fuzzier, and Adrian's sound is a bit more kind of identifiable, more as a kind of classic metal sound. And because it came that afterwards, not necessarily that it was a classic sound at this time. Probably it was pretty much new at the point when this record came out. And he's using G12 T75s. As I said, we originally thought that they were both using the 65s, but no, they're definitely using different cabinets and different speakers. You can hear it in the sound. And actually, after a lot of experimentation, when we put the 75 into the signal chain, it just slotted right in and immediately sounded correct. So we're pretty much 100% sure that's what he used. And still today, again, I think like many players, they go off and experiment with new gear. They become a successful band. They got a big budget. They can buy new toys, and they do that. And invariably, it seems like a lot of those artists over a long period of time will kind of come back around to the classic stuff that is most iconic. And that's exactly what Adrian Smith's done as well. He's back on G12 T75s now as well. So there we go. Now, this is the amp part. There is also to consider, because this is a producer series pack, all of the things that were done to this sound after it enters the microphones. There's two mics on each of these, a dynamic mic and a condenser, and a third mic which picks up the room, which is either on or off, depending on the profile. And there are profiles with the room on and with the room off, because you need both in order to recreate the sounds on the album. They're being used sort of interchangeably at different points. But production, concept of production, what does that mean? Well, it means what you're plugging that microphone into, the mixing console. It means any compressors that you have on the signal before you record it. It means the sound of the tape machine you're recording it onto. It means the sound of the console that signal is then coming back into. Any outboard that you're putting on it, any EQ that you're applying to it, any reverbs you're putting on it, all that stuff. When you go into mixing that song, from the raw materials to the thing that you end up hearing on the finished record, it's a long journey. And what we wanted to do with the producer series, and the whole purpose for it being done in the first place, was that we really wanted to see if we could push the boundaries of how close you could get to the sound on the record, not necessarily having the same equipment as the original player did, but take it all the way to the end of that journey and give you exactly what you hear when you put on the Powerslave album, that sound. So that's what we've done here. So all the production elements, they are captured as well, and they're all in the profiles depending on which of the profile types you load. There are 3 types in these packs. I'll just quickly explain what they are, but again, the other deep dives for the other producer series packs, they have long explanations of this stuff, and there are other videos too on the website that explain it in more detail. But here's the basic principle. The 3 types, you have the all-in-one, AIO, which is as it sounds. You load that and you have the entire sound exactly as it is on the record. Then you have what's called a DI. The DI profile is everything up to, but not including the speaker. So just the pedals and whatever's creating the sound and the amplifier and its sound, but no speaker, no microphone, no production. So that you could use, for example, live if you wanted to run it into a real guitar speaker or a simulated guitar speaker, to give you other options than the sound that's on the record. You'd have that raw amp tone that the artist was actually recording that you'd then be able to reuse and do other things with. So we found that Our customers certainly have told us that's something they really like and use a lot. And then the third type is the production profile. Well, this is everything else: the speaker, the microphone, and all of the things that have been done to the sound in order to take it from that raw sound being recorded right to the one that you then hear on the finished record. So in addition to profiles in these packs, there are another set of files which are the studio effects, reverb, chorus, all the other effects and stuff that are on the sound in the mixdown that you have as a separate preset for Convology XT. Again, we've got videos explaining how you install this, how you load those, all that stuff. So we'll just put links for you in the description rather than spending time explaining it all again here. But you get everything. You get the whole sound, the recorded tone as it sounds on the record, and all of the studio effects. You can play through it and it sounds exactly like the record, as we're going to demonstrate now. So you've seen the intro already, and me playing through a part of the track Powerslave. It's the title track on the album, so, you know, a useful thing to show. But also, it's quite a different sound to some of the others that we're going to go through later, and so it also demonstrates that with these same profiles, you can cover all the territory of the different tones on the record because you've got the EQ built into Neural Amp Modeler. And in all these examples, I'm just using the EQ that's already on NAMM. There's no extra effects. There's nothing being used here that is not included in the packs. So you know that what you're hearing is genuinely what's going on in the pack itself. Of course, you could use other EQ and other things if you want to change the sounds later and do other things with them, maybe use them in your own production. But the principle of what I'm trying to demonstrate for you here is just how close these sounds are with nothing else required. So I'm going to quickly go through the sounds that you heard. I was playing the Powerslave part completely live and playing 3 parts at the same time, playing 3 sounds at the same time. And this is a theme for this video. We're going to try as much as possible to play everything live in real time to give you as good an idea as we can how these sounds are, how they work, how they sound, without you needing to go through the process of double tracking, recording loads of times and all this kind of stuff to then realize the sound. This is kind of me just playing it live. There's one exception right at the end where we're going to play through a whole track where I've got a couple of recorded rhythm parts because I'm going to be playing lead part solos and stuff, and I need that underneath what I'm playing. So you'll see that later anyway. So for this one, just going to use Powerslave to show you the way that this layered sound that we're playing. Quite a big sound.
Had you mentioned that there's old quantum speakers?
Well, I mean, the production profile is quantum speaker,
Yeah.
but because it's also got all of the extra studio stuff on it as well,
Yeah.
it's kind of quantum speaker plus, if you like.
Quantum speaker plus.
Well, no, I mean, that's a way of saying it, but I mean,
Yeah.
the quantum speaker is designed to sound exactly like the microphone did when it was put in front of the cabinet.
Yeah.
Obviously, in the producer series version of those, although they are made in the same non-linear speaker profiles, exactly the same, they also have EQ and changes and other things that mean that they're no longer exactly the raw sound of the microphone. They've got the so the principle. I guess we could say that the pure principle of quantum speaker is it's supposed to be 100% real.
Yeah.
And by that I mean unchanged, unsweetened, unfiltered. You know, the sound of that mic as it was at the second it was recorded. But in principle, yes, it's a not. If you mean by quantum speaker, a non-linear speaker profile instead of an IR, absolutely. None of our producer series sounds would sound anything like real if we were limited by using an impulse response for the speaker simulation. Particularly because all the things we've done so far, maybe apart from John Mayer, rely really heavily on the sound of a speaker being very loud.
Yeah.
And that has all the non-linear stuff in it. So if you take that away, immediately just sounds completely wrong. So quantum speaker actually is a product that was born out of necessity because we were making these packs and it was not possible to make them sound right unless we had something that was taking the sound of the speaker and delivering that as well. So that's kind of where the entire process started, and very, very long research, development, making, you know, bespoke devices and all kinds of things that we had to work out to turn Quantum Speaker into a product that, is fantastic and we're very proud of. But for us as well, it was an essential tool in order for us to be able to deliver these production profiles in our producer series packs, because we wanted you to get the three pieces of this puzzle, because it's just super cool and fun to be able to see it from all these different angles, but also the utility in that. You have a similar kind of sound that you're using with a real amp or something you've recorded. You can run it into these production profiles and immediately get the sound of a fully produced guitar, not just, an IR of a speaker. You get a non-linear speaker simulator with all the things that were done to this sound in order to put it on a record that sold 9 million copies. I mean, it's got to be worth the curiosity anyway, at least. But yeah, anyway, let's carry on. So you've heard the sound all together. There's actually 3 sounds, and I'll play you the individual ones. So first of all, we've got Adrian Smith. He's over on the left here. So this is his sound as it is on Powerslave. I'll show you the EQ settings. Oh, there are no EQ settings. So he's just totally vanilla here with a slight reduction to the gain, because this track is played in quite a tight way and it's not got as much overdrive on the sound as some of the others. So this is pulled back a little bit just to give you that tightness in the sound. This profile is the one with a room on. As I said, there are with room and without room versions of both of these players' 2 sounds. So as you probably know, the producer series revolves around this theory of 5 main sounds. There's going to be more in this case because we've got some of them that have these 2 variants, one with and one without a room. But the basic idea is you have a rhythm sound for Dave Murray, you have a lead sound for Dave Murray, you have a rhythm sound for Adrian Smith, and a lead sound for Adrian Smith, and then with and without the room. Because the sound that they use to play the solos is very different. Loads more mid-range. It's designed to be happening when the vocalist is not singing. So it's got a very different, sonic characteristic. It's filling that gap, which of course you couldn't have the rhythm guitar parts occupying the sonic territory of the vocalist. You wouldn't be able to hear what they were singing. So that, as a construction kit, you get all the pieces, all the sounds that they're using all the time. I think without exception, you can reconstruct this whole album with one more, which I'll show you in a minute. But so this is his rhythm sound with room. You can hear it's got quite a lot of room. There's reverb on it too, coming from the effects preset, the Adrian Smith rhythm preset. Again, this is all included in the pack. There's a video on how you install these and how you load them up and all that stuff. So we won't go through it again, but we'll put the link below for you if you want to know how to do that. But you get one effect preset per sound as well. And you don't need different ones for the room on and room off, because the room is recorded by the microphones in the speaker in the profile. Whereas the reverb is a separate thing, and there's also chorus going on here as well. So you can see here the 5 presets you get in the pack. One for the Adrian Smith rhythm sound, one for his lead sound, one for Dave Murray's rhythm and lead, and then there's a clean sound as well, which I'll show you in a sec. So that's the rhythm sound for Adrian Smith on here, and then if we swap over to Dave Murray, you can hear it's a very different sound. Mainly attributed to the different speaker. But this also is the no room version. Now, I know you're probably thinking, wow, there's loads of reverb on it. But there's not on the sound, right? No. Turn the effect off. The reverb is what's making it sound roomy. There are versions that have the actual real room where the microphone was embedded in the sound, and it's quite loud. And you need those for certain parts on the album. If you listen to it, you'll hear. Sometimes the part that's being played, it has the room on it. Sometimes it's dry and it's much more close sounding. Sometimes they'll double apart and they'll play one with the no room sound on one side and then double it and play it again and have the room version of the sound on the other side, maybe quieter, to create this kind of big soundscape. But either way, you needed both, so we gave you both. So that's Dave Murray's rhythm sound. Again, just if you flip-flop here between the two, you can hear that real kind of classic heavy metal sound from the Tube Screamer, and then Dave's one is a bit more fuzzy. But But the sound of Iron Maiden is these two combined, and it's undeniably recognizable immediately. The third one here is what they've done on quite a lot of the tracks. They have a third sound, and it can be either Dave's sound or Adrian's sound. It's not the same on every song. In this case, it's Dave's sound with a room, and it's just being pumped into a chorus and reverb. So you can hear it's got a lot of chorus on it, and they do a lot on the album to thicken up the sound and create a kind of interesting movement. There's loads of chorus on these guitars all over the album, and actually it's a sort of something maybe you don't notice at first, but when you start listening to it, especially in isolation, you realize, wow, you really use a lot of chorus on this album.
They sound like really punchy and coming through, don't they?
Yeah, but you would think of it as sounds really raw, but actually, you know, there's chorus on these guitars. And anyway, so when you hear it all together then, that's the sound of Iron Maiden, right? Those things combined. There it is. So that's this song, and again, we'll go through another song now as well and show you how these same building blocks are used to create a slightly different version of that combination of sounds. Maybe, you know, one guy's louder than the other guy, maybe one guy's got room on, one hasn't. So all these kind of different ways of using these same basic building blocks are how they constructed the different sounds on the different tracks of the album. But just to show you, it's all in there. There's one more sound I want to show you that you'll need, that is used a couple of times, and it's this clean sound made with a Roland Jazz chorus, and it's on Powerslave. You'll probably recognize this part if you know the song. And of course, there's an effect preset as well that's doing all of that sort of heavy lifting in terms of reverb and chorus.
And which speaker did that go through?
This goes through the Roland Jazz chorus speaker. So it is a JC120, and the chorus that I've put on it in the preset is very similar to the one that's built into the amp, and probably that's what they would have done. It's quite common in the 80s, particularly when you're using a JC120, to just mic it in stereo and use the chorus in the amp. Now we can't profile chorus, but I've matched it as best I can using the Convology chorus, and it's very good. It's very good. Everything that we've tried to use this for so far, I've always been kind of thinking, well, there's just the built-in modulation in the reverb. How good can it be? And being just blown away by how correct it sounds in every single case. And we went all the way through, did the Van Halen thing with it as well, and John Mayer, and there wasn't any chorus on Metallica, I don't think, but so far this has really just shocked me at how great it sounds. And again, you can hear when you listen to the sounds just how right it seems to be. And I can guess back in the 80s, there weren't that many chorus units, and they had a lot of common architecture in terms of what they were doing. And this, I think, sounds very like those early ones. So it seems like while we're working in the 80s as our subject material, it does seem that this one really nails it nicely. So anyway, so that's it for Powerslave. We're going to move now on to another song. We'll catch you in a sec. Welcome back. Right, so another track, another guitar. We thought we'd go Black Strat, Double Cream DiMarzio's. Very on trend for what we're doing here. Basically, another song. Very similar. There's not an awful lot of difference here. The balance is different in terms of the level of each of the two guitars. There, again, are a couple of changes to the room, no room situation here. You can see Dave's sound has got no room. Adrian Smith's sound has room. And then the third, the double track with the chorus on, is mid-scooped and has room, and is Dave Murray's sound in this case, is the extra track. Tiny bit of bass taken away, all the mid taken away. This is on the double track only, but I'll play you these three on their own, and then we'll launch into a little bit of Rime of the Ancient Mariner, so you can hear these three sounds again. And obviously, you're going to have to bear in mind that on the original recording, all of these separate sounds were separate performances.
Yeah.
So I don't want to get into like completely recording the track and giving you sort of playback to watch to understand the building blocks of this pack that we're selling. I really want you to experience it in real time live, which is why I'm doing this and lining up these so that we're playing all the sounds at once. But you just have to understand that on the original record, a sound had a performance, and another guitar player would have been playing the other sound, and they would have been playing slightly differently, and all of that adds up to the kind of organic nature of a recording like that. So if you want to recreate it, you're going to have to play each of these sounds slightly differently and record it all separately, but not how we want to demo it for you. And it still sounds awesome anyway, so you're going to get the idea, don't worry. So here we go. Three sounds. Adrian Smith, again on the left hand side, all the way on the left hand side this time. Big room sound. Loads of reverb as well on this track. It's a lot more kind of big, generally more low end, but that's his kind of.
When you can hear that speaker,
doesn't it sound loud?
That's like
that's the quantum speaker thing. So
I mean, like that's like the only thing with as much energy as that is one of Elon's rockets.
If you tried making this sound and you didn't have the real speaker in the sound,
no way,
no chance. It would just not work. It just sounds wrong. Anyway, over to Dave, and the same thing going on here, but he's pushing his G1265 speakers super hard. It's interesting, actually, Dave's sound, and one of the things in general about this whole idea of recording very loud is that people associate Iron Maiden particularly with having this really bright sound. But I can tell you, none of that brightness is coming from the guitar. It's actually mostly coming from the fact that the equipment is being pushed so hard and so loud that it's creating high frequency sound, not through what's being put into it, but through its kind of
energy,
cracking under the strain. It's high voltage, literally. That's what you're hearing, like power going into the speaker, trying to make it do more than it can, causing it to flap around and distort. And that, what you hear that as is this kind of fizzy, high frequency energy in the sound. And it sounds energetic. It sounds vibrant and alive. But it's not something that you could say, well, I'll just EQ that to make it brighter. It's a completely different type of character in the sound that is like in its bones.
It's almost like it's another whole thing in itself.
It's in the DNA of the sound. It can't take it out once it's in there, and you certainly can't put it in if it wasn't there to start with by any means through any studio tools. Equalizers, compressors, none of that stuff has a chance of getting it anywhere near this sound. It can only be created by taking an amplifier, goosing it by putting something in that's far too loud for the design of the circuit, and then turning it up so the speaker also goes and then the microphone too because it's so damn loud. And this is at a time when before microphones were really designed to deal with sounds that loud. Most microphones, the classic designs, most of them were designed for acoustic instruments with the volume reference. Like there wasn't a thing that you could record other than a passing jet engine that would be at 120 dB SPL, like a Marshall stack on full whack. That it took a while for microphone design to catch up with the loudness of these sources. So what you're hearing an awful lot as well, and we've made sure to use appropriate mics to make sure that it happens, is the microphone also not being able to handle the amount of sound pressure that's trying to be forced into it. And that all contributes to this high energy sound that, again, I mean, you hear it particularly with Dave because he's got... much fuzzier, but a similar principle. And then Adrian's sound is thick.
It's
thick and meaty, and the opposite almost of Dave's. And that's why they work so well together. It's the combination of the two and the variation in the panning of them and the interaction between those two completely different sounding. Again, it's down to predominantly, they're using the same amp, right? They're using a similar way to boost that amp, but the two different speakers, they're just fundamental to the sound that each guy is getting. And again, it's not, this is not something you could just EQ in. It has to be right. So the third sound is similar again, just a double track. In this case, it's Dave Murray's sound going into the reverb and chorus. There's a reverb and chorus on the other sounds too, but not as much. This one's really got a lot of it, and it sits right in the middle, and it interacts with both of the other sounds to pull them together into a single kind of, huge, meaty metal beast. It needs that central one to make it then sound like one thing. But so this is. Metallica, right?
Yeah.
Good reason for that.
Yeah.
Same speaker.
But that sounds so roomy. But then binding it back in with the other like that disappears. It just like
in the track it disappears because the focus is on the two louder sounds.
Yeah.
So this is adding like a dimensional layer behind the thing that your ear is hearing the most of. So it's not something that you're necessarily focusing in on when you hear the whole sound. It's just a piece of it, but it's the piece that adds weight and size, because it's like anything. If you go into a space and you make a quiet noise, you're not overly aware of the sound. Yeah. You go in there and clap your hands or burst a balloon or something, and you hear the reverb of that space. And this is a very similar principle. When you have something that's in there that is seeped in ambience, it just adds size to everything, and your brain interprets it as that it must be loud because it's creating all of this reverberation in the space. So again, let's hear it all together.
I don't know anyone couldn't want that sound.
All right. Okay, now let's hear it in the context of this track.
Yeah.
Again, as I said before, I'm playing all three parts at the same time. That's not how it would have been on the record. Each sound would have had its own performance, its own little idiosyncrasies and nuances that would have made it just that slight bit of movement more human. But you get the idea.
There goes a mariner, there comes a ship on the lake. But how can she sail with no wind in her sails or no tide? See, onward she comes, onward she nears, out of the sea. See, she has no
we go.
I know I'm going to be falling asleep to it in my head tonight.
That's it. Like, this track is, what is it, like, I don't know, 9 minutes long or something stupid. It's got to be one of the longest songs ever.
They had
13 minutes, that could be right.
They had fun,
It's long. It's long. So there we go. In context, you hear the sound of the band is these separate parts combined. And I think that this is a really great kind of primer for anyone who's not thought about recording guitar in different sounds combined to make the overall effect that you then hear in the mix. It's so powerful. It's so much more interesting. Even when I'm playing them all together at the same time, without the variations in performance that you would get if you double tracked. Even in that case, it's a huge difference between any single sound and this kind of combination and what it can do to fill out and create interest in the sonic space. So, Rime and the Ancient Mariner. We've got one more to do. This one's going to be slightly different. As I said, we are going to play this song all the way through, and there is a pre-recorded rhythm track for each of the two rhythm guitars because I'm going to be playing the solos in real time. So I'm going to load that up and then I'll explain how it's going to work. It's a little bit wacky, but see you in a minute. All right, welcome back. So, back on the old Powerslave guitar, especially prepared for this occasion. A little Eddie the Ed on there. A nice gold pharaoh thing. Anyway, 2 minutes to midnight. Okay, this is I just cards on the table. This is my favourite song on this album. And maybe even my favourite Iron Maiden song. Possibly. Because I think it's kind of like the perfect Iron Maiden song. The elements that are in it, lyrically, the riff, the solos, it's kind of like, it's not a really long track either. It's kind of like, for me, everything that I love about them in one track. So I'm going to explain what I'm going to do. I'm going to try and play live more or less the entire song. Now, obviously, I can't play more than one thing at a time. So what I've done is I've pre-recorded the rhythm guitar track once for Dave's sound and Adrian's sound. I'll just play a little bit of these. I can show you the profile at the same time. So for Adrian's stuff, he comes in at the beginning with the main riff. So you can see totally, again, for him, just completely default, nothing changed whatsoever. Just turn it up a little bit. And this is with a room on. You can tell the ones that don't have a room, they have NR, no room in the name. And then the same thing, just the normal rhythm part for Dave's sound. Notice a lot more gain on this track, just generally across the board. They have a lot more drive, and I think it's because it suits the riff. It's not so fine detailed, so just giving it that extra bit of juice just helps to give a high energy feel to the song. So now let me explain how it's going to work, how what I'm going to play is going to work. So we've got this live guitar track, and that's feeding into these other tracks down here. Each one has the profile loaded for what it says. So you've got Adrian's rhythm track, Dave's rhythm track. So I'm going to be the third guitar while I'm playing the rhythm parts. And then when I go off to play the lead, the solos, those two pre-recorded rhythm tracks are going to keep things ticking over until I get back to the rhythm. So my rhythm sound, and you can see here this map of automation where it's going to turn things on and off. Let me just show you again how that's working in real time. So when I'm playing the rhythm part, there's that. And then if I go into a section of the song where there's a solo, and then when it goes from Dave's solo into Adrian's solo, it switches again. Yeah. And then here again, it's turning the reverb up. That section where he does all that stuff. Then it goes back to the rhythm again. And all that stuff. Then you've got the... Right, so don't be alarmed if the sound is changing while I'm playing. I am still playing it live, I promise. You'll see there's nothing recording, there's no pre-recorded stuff here for all the things that I'm doing. It's all happening in real time, and this is how. All right, so again, yes, there are 2 pre-recorded rhythm guitar tracks running in the background. I need those because I can't play rhythm and lead at the same time. So you'll have to allow me that little mercy in order to deliver this. I don't know what we're going to call this.
Might even be a world first.
I don't know. Maybe
Might
it is.
be
So
anyone else who's done it, show us.
Yeah. So and also, there's a harmony as well here. Look, in the middle of the solo, Dave chimes in with this little beat. So that's coming from the harmony track there as well. All right. So here we go. I'm going to try and play it all live. A little bit odd, I'll grant you that, but important. And it's, let me just say this, all right? I've heard a lot of people talking about YouTube guitar players and all this kind of stuff. Now, I'm not out here as a YouTube guitar player. I'm trying to impress you with my playing. I'm just trying to demonstrate this pack. But, you know, I do hear and I do agree to a certain extent with this idea that, you know, an awful lot of the guitar content on YouTube is highly polished, labored over, perfected, you know, pre-recorded and mimed to in some cases. And it does, can set an unrealistic standard for new players, young players, when they see that kind of thing and think, well, that's not physically possible for me.
Yeah.
And they get discouraged by it. So I would say, you know, yes, a lot of the times you'll see me playing and it'll be a bit raw and, you know, I'll play things and they'll sound a bit bum, but, you know, that's why I really do believe that I should be doing as much of this stuff as I possibly can for you live in real time, because I think that gives you the most authentic view on what it is that we're trying to demonstrate. And that means also that I can make mistakes from now on and completely get away with it. So that's a win-win. All right, so we're going to try this without a safety net. Here we go.
Black and pride still burns inside this shell of blood.
Brilliant.
Ah,
Did it. The world first.
There we
So I did
go.
First.
that
Brilliant.
was pretty weird, but pretty cool. So it goes without saying, you know, I love this music, right? I love this band, and it's been a real pleasure for us to make this pack, and that passion, I hope you can hear in the result. We've really tried to bring the absolute essence of how this band sounds into something that you can, for the first time, as far as I'm aware, you can get your hands on and actually play through. And man, is it fun! If you love this band, you're gonna want it. I mean, the experience of playing these songs with the same sound that they had, it's like nothing else. For me, at least, it's like a dream I had as a child. You know, and you listen to an album. These are the kind of albums that made me want to play guitar in the first place. And you just think, well, you know, what must it be like to play through, you know, that artist's rig or whatever, and then, you know, not even realizing as a child back then that even if they had the same amp and same pedal and all the same equipment that the guy had in front of him, when I played it, it would sound nothing like the record. Like, that's the engineer and the producer and all that other stuff going on that turns it into, you know, that sound. And to come full circle now as an old man, you know, who's lived a bit and done obviously a lot of work with recording, to kind of be able to take all of that knowledge and just, you know, shove it into this thing that can bring that sound to life, make it an entity of its own. Like, forget the equipment, forget this is a free plugin, you know. Now we can just interact with the sound. We can think purely about the sound, which is almost backwards on the way it's been. It's always been about the gear, you know. You get this right piece of gear, then your sound is going to be great. You know, if you buy the right amp, that's the amp that the guy that I like uses, my sound is going to be like theirs. Like, forget all of that. Now it's just straight to the sound. It's completely new.
And I think it's so fascinating. I think it can give you so much information, whether you're just you haven't ever started and done any mixing with the guitars, or you've been doing it for years. I mean, even for myself, just it gives you a lot of aha moments, because a lot of the things that you've been trying to do with other things, just multiple of the same stem and bringing it in, the
you see under the hood.
Well, when you break down with this, it's like, oh wow, that's how they do it. So epic.
Cool. Right, so that's us done for this video. Hope to see you soon in another one. Any comments? Make sure you leave them below. Come and join us on our Facebook group. Link in the description as well. Love to see you there, and, you know, talk about what we've got going on. Loads of other stuff. Not just Producer Series. That's only one of the products that we do. We've got Quantum Speaker, as we kind of talked about a little bit earlier on, which is this hyper-realistic upgrade, I guess, to IRs. It's a fully non-linear, proper speaker simulation that captures all of it from the source. No algorithms or pretend or simulated stuff. It's profiling, capturing the real sound of the microphone. Really exciting as well. If you record guitar and you want to get into making your recordings sound more real, come and see us. That's exactly what we're all about. And we'd love to hear from you and see you on the group. So that's it from me. Thanks again. See you soon.
See you soon, guys. Metallica, John Mayer, Eddie Van Halen, and now the one, the only Iron Maiden. Epic. See you.